Hey everyone, welcome back to Play Casket with your hosts, Barak the Goblin,
And Ghost, your co-host.
and this week we're going to go ahead and talk about basically arcade cabinets, experiences, and everything else. Everything arcade.
Episode 39, Spare No Quarter.
So, basically, one of the reasons why we're going to go ahead and talk about this, because it's been such a weird archaic topic, is that it's a lot of what people, like a lot of the bastions for arcades are now starting to change rapidly. Like Japan, we still said that Japan was really great because they had a lot of these arcades and stuff, and it's actually drastically changing even when this recording is going to get posted. Basically, one of the good symbols of that is Sega is selling a lot of their arcade systems and basically in their buildings and such, and moving away from arcade development. And then on top of that, Japan is also moving more towards mobile gaming and such, so not many people want to be connected in a small little venue like that anymore, which is quite interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to go ahead and kind of get into it. Let's go ahead, basically let's start with our childhood, right? What are your fondest memories about childhood with arcades?
Well, what brought this up too was I was listening to Spawnwave, and he brought up the arcade cabinets, and they were bringing up Time Crisis, and yeah, that was like my childhood memory when that was the first time I ever played Time Crisis, and the blowback in that gun. I'm like, oh my god, this is like the coolest arcade cabinet ever.
It makes some lefties think that they actually have been carrying guns this entire time too.
So, yeah, it would be nice to actually get one of those in my house or something like that. But it also brings me back to a Time Out. I think that was like the first arcade I ever went to in what is it? It was in a mall back when I was a kid, but it was around for a while, and they finally closed it down when they tore the whole place down. But yeah,
I think Time Out was actually a franchise of arcades because I recall them too, but I think the only one I ever really remembered was it was kind of attached to a strip mall joint that was right next to a Pizza Hut.
yeah.
So that was what I was familiar with, but they never tore that area down. It just mine just got basically revitalized. I think the Pizza Hut's still technically there. I do think a lot of the other places is more like hipster stuff, yoga stuff, and all that. Like the area around it has gotten more hipster over the years, and I think it's like one of the last, I wouldn't say bastions, but kind of like a last fragment of my memory still left in that area. It's kind of really interesting, but yeah, I do think Time Out was kind of a franchise on that. And I like my personal experiences, like I never really went to arcades, like actual arcades, like dedicated arcade rooms and stuff like that. But I would go to places that would have an arcade section. Like, for instance, one of my more favored memories was we would go to a dollar theater with my family. And we would actually, like, there's this one small arcade corner. And it was like along a long wall. Like, it was a big corner, but it wasn't like... It wouldn't be anywhere near as big as an actual dedicated arcade section, but it was enough of a place that, like, a lot of dates and date nights, you could see couples playing certain games together and stuff like that, or you see a couple of the friends try to fight each other while they're waiting for their movie to play and stuff, right? And that's exactly what me and my brother would do.
Oh, okay.
One of the ones me and my brother would do a lot of was play Gauntlet. And Gauntlet was actually pretty heavy inspiration for a lot of us growing up. So the original Gauntlet was there, even though we had the Nintendo system and all that. But one of the more favored ones was it was the only place I've ever seen Gauntlet Legends as an arcade.
Was that the 3D one, right?
It was the first 3D one.
Oh, okay.
Yes. And that kind of like freaked us out. We were like super excited about that a lot. And even though we owned the 64 version of that game, like for some reason we knew the arcade it played different. There was different worlds and stuff like that, and we were like freaking out about it. So we would play that, but we would also like settle our differences a lot in Primal Rage, which was the other cabinet that me and him would play quite a bit. And Primal Rage was probably still one of my favorite obscure fighting games out there. Just outside of Clay Fighters, but like for instance, like it was just one of those games that there was characters for me and my brother would both resonate with, and we just loved it a lot. And that was basically the way we experienced a lot of arcade lifestyle was in this small little corner here.
Oh, okay.
Anything else that you usually had when you were a kid?
Well, there was a jet game. I could find it sometimes, but it was like a jet flight simulator. But you play like a fighter jet. Okay. So I remember that one too. That one was fun.
Yeah, like honestly, I've never like a lot of the arcade lifestyle I had. Never really had, like all of them were like the stand-up arcade coin ops. Like a lot of the traditional ones, you joystick, buttons, that was it. Like it wasn't until I was older that I actually like I knew of them. I knew all the shooting games and stuff existed out there. I knew of them. I was aware of them. But it wasn't until I was like in college where I actually got to see them and experience them personally.
Yeah.
But like for me as a child, like the only other game that I could ever say is my mother had the old Galaxian stand-up, like the classic and everything, and that was like the only other one we played pretty much religiously. It was in our like warehouse for the longest time, and we'd play it like probably nonstop. We'd play it a good solid couple hours, go back to our Genesis and carry on.
Oh, and then I remember the Westminster Mall when it was still up before they tore it down.
That was also a timeout.
Yeah.
Yep.
Red, and then they changed it to Red Baron, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and it was like a partial pizza joint, right?
No? It was tied. It was right next to a blackjack, and I think that was one of the things it was. But I'm not sure anything else beyond that.
Oh, okay.
Like, I think they tried selling food in house there too, but it was one of those. It was one of those places that we'll probably touch up on here in a bit about why we think they fell.
Okay.
But yeah, like. It was always a cool, like, I loved the arcades because it was a really way to try, like, new experiences that I just couldn't get playing on the buttons and stuff like that.
Yeah, well,
so
they had those big, giant machines that are, like, cool as shit that you can't get on home consoles. That's kind of why
it was really
impressive.
So. Yeah, it was definitely amazing. But then, fast forward, how do you feel about them now that you're an adult?
Well...
Like looking back at it now, let's say, and like back at it now, like how do we feel about them now? Like what do we think made it fall?
I think it's also like the thriftiness, like the convenience of just having without having to like throw quarters into machines,
right?
Because there's always the what is it? We have this at home. Like why do you want to play this? We have this at home.
Yeah,
when you don't have to spend quarters on it. So
yeah. I think that's a very major catalyst to the whole thing. I do believe you mentioned another thing just before we were getting this recording was a lot, and I think it's good to talk about was the drugs.
Yeah, Cabinet Console Gamer covered that, and why they went to a wayside was because there was a lot of like teenage kids because I think he was still really young in like middle school or elementary, and the high school kids would bully them for their quarters, and they would deal drugs, and it was just like these really shady places. And then the kids would get in a fight, and they would fight with the owners, and I guess eventually just kind of did away with it because
I think I do think the whole drug culture that like surrounded and like basically became a magnet to the arcades was what actually helped people really view video games as a very degenerate words are hard. Degenerate system.
Yeah.
It was a den of delinquents, as they were. And a lot of parents fought against them. When I was growing up, there was actually a thing called the MAGs, or Mothers Against Gaming, that basically their first order of business was basically chase out all arcades, and it was successful almost instantaneously.
Yeah,
like they shut down everyone, and they were able to use what they discovered, what happened in a lot of places, against basically game rental places, game trial places. Like there was game stores and just stuff. All
You know,
sorts
this
of
might
stuff.
sound crazy, but you could just watch your damn kids.
Yeah, you could just watch your damn kids instead of let the government do it, because obviously the government's really bad at everything they do. But you know, and I think that was one of the reasons why arcades died so fast, because not only was it convenient for you to just have something quote unquote at home with a home console, but it's also, oh, my kid can't go anywhere, he's safer here.
Yeah.
Basically, so it was like a mutual agreement. You can play your games, but basically you got to stay in the living room. Like
Yeah.
without an active acknowledgement of it. And I think that's why a lot of the arcades, and at least in North America, went down fast. And when you look back at it, like you can see that's kind of like, you'll probably see it now with adults and stuff. The arcade bars. Like, I'm not sure if you've been to a couple of them.
Yeah, yeah. We got One Up, Dave and Buster's. Was it About Time? Think
About
Time
that
was
too.
one?
Yeah, think about time. And so
Well, surprisingly, they're making a come. They're well, not a full comeback, but they're starting to trend more, I guess.
yeah, they're starting to trend more. I think that's a really good thing that's happening. But think about it; those are only attracting to the adults that we all are.
Well, to be fair, it's more like I think it's more of a millennial thing. I don't know if Gen Z or
I don't think Gen Z's going to, because Gen Z, I think, like when you think about it, they were not around during arcades.
yeah,
Like we saw the fall of arcades.
yeah,
Like we saw, and it was a tragedy to us. Like when you think about it, it was like when the last video game store closes and all there is digital, it's going to hurt a lot of us. We're just going to be like, then how are we supposed to play our games later?
yeah,
You know, like what happens if Switch 2 is all digital, but I want to play my game that's only on the Switch 2 and it's no longer supported?
yeah,
You know, like what if I want to go back to that console and play it? Like I could do that right now to a 64 game. And for most part, if 64 was online, it wouldn't be now.
yeah.
You know, it would be too archaic to try to keep up. You know, and I think a lot of that's going to really hurt us in the future, and Gen Z just doesn't care. Like Gen Z's like, whatever, I get my game, press play, and I still feel good because I post it on my social media. None of it's real, sweetheart. None of it's real. And I think that's one of the reasons why I think actually the company, I think it's called Arcade One Up or One Up Arcade. It's a like digital, smaller, like compact versions of these stand-up arcade titles and stuff like that. And sometimes they'll have a series of titles in them, and you play like you would originally play an actual arcade system.
Yeah.
I think that's why they're coming back, and I think that's why they're trending pretty popular too. Because I even heard just recently they did a Killer Instinct Battletoads.
Oh yeah.
Fuck. I want that. Like, I have no room to place it in this dead ass mausoleum, but I want it.
Well, we'll see where they go. Only because I heard they're starting to get more expensive, aren't they?
Some of them are, because there's a lot more licensing fees and problems and stuff like that. And plus inflation, plus the economy, plus politics, plus blah 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 blah. So a lot of that nonsense. But it's still, when you look at that compared to if you wanted a classic stand-up arcade, those things are expensive as hell.
Yeah.
And then and I'm not even talking about like getting a brand new one. Like Raw Thrills just made a Cruisin', I think it's like Cruisin' Blast as an arcade version back in 2018. Like people are still making like arcade games, obviously, because there's places like Dave and Buster's and such, but nowhere near the magnitude they used to.
Yeah.
And this One Up Arcade company is just appealing to more of the classics and stuff, but trying to get a classic stand-up like Galaxian. Like if I was able to get Galaxian from my mother for free, trying to get that up to snuff and running properly
Yeah.
would be insurmountable big of a budget.
Yeah, maintenance is also a pain in the ass, especially if people don't treat your machine well.
Yeah. Well, even if they did all that technology is still going to be so outdated that like you'll have dimming in the TVs and stuff. You want a natural arcade experience. You're going to upgrade a lot of that, you
Yeah.
know? And eventually some of those parts might not even be replaceable. Like think about the monitor. You're probably going to have to go with a digital LCD LED screen to replace that thing.
Or the light guns that don't work. Look
Yeah.
at you, Dave Busters. Holy shit.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly my point. You know, it's going to be insane.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's why that's why as an adult, like I think this arcade one-up company is kind of like bridging the gap a little bit.
Okay.
You know, but it's gonna be really hard because I don't think even they can probably cover up a lot of stuff. Because I would kill for a smaller version of Galaxian just because I grew up with it.
Yeah.
And same thing with Primal Rage. Nobody knows who owns Primal Rage, and nobody's gonna make one right now.
Well, we'll see who wants to jump in on the fight too, because only if one-up arcade cabinets are the only ones doing it. I like to see other.
So
Other companies jump
I
in
think
too.
I think you're onto a good point too, because look at the music industry right now, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of places are now moving to vinyl. That new artists are making vinyl of their entire like record series, like their entire discography.
Yeah.
And at first, it was just a couple record players that just came out from Victrola and stuff like that. But more retail stores are now carrying Crosby's and all these other like companies. There's even like new companies, not even ones that are like very well established in classic music industry. They're just out there like, yeah, we're hip and we could play this too. You know, like it's just weird.
Yeah.
And I could see that happening because at one point in time too, there was only one company doing 3D printers. Now there's so many companies in the 3D printing and people all adapting 3D printers that they're competing and trying to find the best way to offer the best prices and the best services with one another.
Yeah.
So I could see arcade cabinets getting a challenge, at least from one or two other companies out there.
Okay.
But whether or not they're going to do the same type of experience, because I do think the reason why they're doing it the way they're doing it is for the experience of having an arcade without being in an arcade.
Okay.
And I can honestly even see like the bars re-rigging those so they could actually like either be timed or actually use quarters in their systems and just have a small mini series of them somewhere else.
Yeah.
Where everybody else can like just chill out with and stuff too.
Well, which also reminds me about Manitou Springs. I forgot about that place.
Oh yeah.
Arcades are still really thriving down there, mostly because it's a touristy type of like attraction.
And I think that's where a lot of these things actually generate a lot because the arcade bars, most touristy areas in Denver,
Yeah.
stuff like that. So
And then those pinball machines, they're still a thing too, despite the maintenance. But maybe you got the glass protecting it from like all the idiots and people just being too rough with the machines. But it's all mechanical, so it shouldn't be too hard, right? If anybody repairs pinballs, but no, if you guys get a chance to go visit Manitou Springs, if you come through Colorado, that place is so freaking cool. But yeah,
but no,
so I guess it's the social aspect that
I
will
do,
keep
I
it
do
alive.
think I do think a lot of the social aspect is what's going to keep it alive. It's more of like probably the nostalgic social aspect when you think about it, because I think that's why dive bars are starting to go away, like in a lot of places, because they used to be just a group of drunk biker people constantly joining in and just going there, you know, and plus with some truckers may stop in just to get away from the family and stuff for a moment. Those are all disappearing. Now a lot of them are more hipster bars and stuff like that, and there's people our age and even a little younger to just, oh my god, they have some weird glow-in-the-dark blue drink, and I'm like, no. That's not how drink's supposed to be. But you know, and I think that's what's happening with the arcade systems and stuff too.
Okay.
However, what do you see in the future of arcades, just in general, like arcade one-ups and Dave and Buster's and stuff like that? Just the overall arcing culture of it.
Well, I think most people want to make the most of their space because I don't think people will buy a cabinet for just one game. So I think more of these all-in-ones are going to be more of a thing. So we'll see who wants to jump in the fight. I still think Nintendo, Sony, or Microsoft might want to jump in. Or if
I can
not,
see that. I could definitely see that.
Yeah.
Well, there's already a Killer Instinct one out there, so Microsoft's kind of involved in arcade at one-up at some degree.
Yeah. Which also reminds me, if they would want to do all in one, I want to see a Xbox micro console.
I don't think they're going to do that for
No.
a while. They got Game Pass right now,
true.
so they're going to just bleed us dry over stuff we can't own. But yeah, no, for me, like I actually I agree that there's probably going to be room for the people wanting that experience, but more encompassing of their time. Like they want more games in the same small square space, because if they're going to invest in something that has a stand-up in that, they want more games to experience it on, and they're not going to just be able to get away with just 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Like they're getting away with it right now,
Yeah.
but eventually when it gets bigger, they're going to be like, shit, we got to do something. And then you're going to probably see like Pac-Man entire series and stuff. And Arcade 1-Up's already doing that with some like Midway ones and stuff. You see like 6 or 7 games on one, but you're going to probably see like whole catalogs and stuff on them.
Okay.
So you're probably going to see a lot more to that. Like I can see entire legacy of Buck Hunter on one game.
That'd be kind of cool.
Like
actually.
that would be so ridiculous. It was going to be so old. Like they're going to have stuff from back in '95 all the way to like I think it was like 2007 was their last one. I don't know. I
Okay.
don't remember. But they're going to have like 40 of them just on one card.
Okay.
And I think that would be hilarious. Like I would love to see that. Like
Yeah.
I want to see the sheer audacity of just that whole legacy of Buck Hunter, even as cringy as that sounds, because we all probably have seen it at a Hooters at one point in time.
Well, just about any restaurant that you go in, you'll see.
Yeah.
You'll see.
You
the Buck
you
Hunter.
either see a racer at Pizza Hut, you will see
A claw machine.
You'll see a claw machine in just about everywhere,
Okay.
even a Walmart. But you'll see Buck Hunter and golfing at a Hooters or a Twin Peaks or some other titillating bar and grill. Or you will see like the ancient classic crap at a CC's Pizza. Like there's always going to be something else there.
Yeah.
But it's almost guaranteed that one cabinet's going to be exactly that. And I don't recall a single Pizza Hut that had an arcade that didn't have a racing game in it.
Oh, okay.
Like did not have a racing game in it. Never. Like I've seen ones that had no arcades, but not one that had an arcade didn't have a racing game. Like
Okay.
there was like an agreement somewhere in the early 90s that Pizza Hut's like, we want cars in our house.
Oh, okay.
So, but I do think that I think you're right about that. But I'm actually really curious of whether or not, outside some of the Dave and Buster one-offs, if for instance, if Arcade 1-Up would make quote unquote new arcade games.
Oh, okay.
You know,
I would say if they do plan to do that, innovate outside the controls. So have something to where.
I don't think they're going to do that too much.
Oh, okay.
I
Like
didn't want to
original
shut you
IPs?
off on that. Like
Original IPs.
like just more like original IPs or like original ideas or something like that. Like,
Oh, okay.
theoretically, if they worked with Team 17, they'd make a new Worms game on an arcade.
Oh, okay.
Like,
okay.
how weird would that? Not only would that actually be,
Uh-huh.
you know, but they wouldn't need to really, innovate the button controls or anything.
Mhm.
They just need to have enough controls to play Worms on.
Yeah.
You know, which is really just control scheme, item button, and then just the two, back and forth acceptance stuff. I could see something like that happening. Theoretically.
Yeah.
I think Worms would be too slow, but I could see something that wouldn't originally be an arcade game
Mm-hmm.
become an arcade game.
Okay. Yeah. No, I don't.
You know, like if theoretically Nintendo decides to put Nintendo Mario Brothers 1, 2, and 3 with Donkey Kong on an arcade cabinet.
Mm-hmm.
Like I could see something to that aspect. Like
Okay.
not Mario per se.
Yeah.
But I don't see brand new ideas coming up yet.
Oh, okay.
Like I think a lot of the appeal for arcades is more based on nostalgia.
Mm-hmm.
So anything that can help generate a nostalgic feel, vibe, or something to that point, I
Yeah.
can see happening. So even if indies got involved, I could see indies that do a lot of like to the roots beat 'em ups or to the roots sports games or to the roots like arcade style like craziness.
Mhm.
I could see something like that.
Okay.
But I do not see them developing something quote unquote for arcades
No, okay.
specifically. That's where I've put on my, and that's where I see it could go.
Okay.
So, but I think that's about as much as I could
Wraps it up.
probably rant. Right? How about
Yeah.
you? So I would like to thank you guys all for listening. If you like our content, please sure to hit that like button and maybe even share it with your friends. And,
Remind us, thumbs up.
yeah,
And
and follow us on our social media and stuff. And we will
we'll
see you on the other side. Hey everyone, this is Paraka.
And Ghost.
I would like to say thank you for listening to our podcast.
If you like our content, give us a thumbs up. Subscribe and share our video with your friends.
You can also follow and support us on other social media such as Minds and Rumble. Links in the description below.